Okay. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing all right. Thank you. Thanks for coming on
Good.
the show.
A
I
pleasure.
appreciate it. So, you are the author of a book called The Lost Ship. Are you a full time author? Is that what you do, or do you do something else?
No, I do something else, and the books that I am interested in writing are ones that I think haven't been done before. And I'm not a one book a year or two guy. It's more like three or four books in a lifetime, I guess.
Okay, so is this the first one, or how many have you written so far?
So I wrote a volleyball technique book some years ago, and when I was coaching volleyball and also playing. And so that was my first one.
So, this one is number what?
Two. This is
Two.
number two.
Okay.
There
What
may well be a third one, though.
what made you decide to write this particular book?
It involves a 12-year-old young man by the name of Jack and an octopus. And when I was his age, which is to say 12 years old, I would dive with locals in Hawaii. My dad paid them to take me out, and they were spearfishing for dinner. And so I had a spear too, but I wasn't any good at it. And I'm embarrassed to say that, of course, they would, it was dinner and octopus could be dinner. And I have a black and white photo in my scrapbook of me standing there at 12 years old with my mask on with an octopus draped around my shoulders. And so I'm kind of embarrassed about that. And then later I found out how smart they were. And not entirely as redemption, but it sounded like a fun thing to do. So,
You said you found out how smart they were. So, did you stop eating them at that point, or you?
that's a really terrible, terrible thing, actually. No, I still do eat calamari. Wait a minute, that's squid, though, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, no, I'm not eating octopus anymore.
So, according to your bio, it says that you did a lot of extensive research for this particular book. What kind of research did you do?
Well, it was very wide. I mean, the interesting thing about marine biologists is that they're very specialized. And I had a marine biologist read the manuscript, and and of course there were things in it that she wasn't aware of because she dived in one portion of the world, namely Hawaii, and the book includes environments and creatures from all over the world. And so there's a little preface that says that it's the case that not all of these creatures live in the same area.
This book is a fiction.
Absolutely. The kid's father is a professional diver working on a way to talk underwater, and he loses one of the devices overboard. It's an upper middle grade novel, by the way, and loses one of the devices overboard, and the octopus slips away with it and learns how to talk. So the kid goes out to shoot a photo of the octopus, and the fun begins.
Do you have like a schedule in terms of writing? I mean, I've asked this question of other authors, where some authors can wake up every day and 9 o'clock in the morning they just start writing. Others need to have an inspirational kick, and they can't really write anything unless they get this sort of from something they read, something they see. Uh, they can't really do it like a 9 to 5 job. What is your process for writing?
Well, I do it when I can. And in the case of this book, I had to have a very tight outline because what I wanted to do was I gathered up all the creatures and environments and wanted to include them all. And so I had to naturally put them into a linear story with smooth transitions. And so I needed to have a pretty tight episode to episode outline. So I could really, once I started the writing, which was an absolute blast, I could do it anytime I wanted. And so that's how it worked for me. I mean, it was 4 years to get acquainted with my research enough to make an outline.
Okay, so once you get going, you kind of can keep it going. Yeah, the momentum's
Oh,
there.
absolutely. Well, and it was so much fun. I mean, I laughed the whole way through. And of course, I love to be silly, and there's lots of opportunities when you've got a 12-year-old and a talking octopus and all the stuff that goes on under the sea.
This sounds like it would make a good animated feature.
Others have said that. I think it would. I mean, particularly with the way they're doing animation these days, which is to say you could have it be, I mean, the fun thing is this is very, in lots of ways, very realistic. I mean, all the marine creatures are doing what they normally do. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit exaggerated, certainly for fun, but yeah, particularly if they could make it look kind of real. I mean, octopuses are pretty cool looking as it is. I mean, their eyes are quite mesmerizing in a way. I mean, they're really looking at you, unlike fish, could be looking anywhere.
Well, that's true. I've seen some
or nowhere.
I've seen some National Geographic films of octopus, particularly ones like in the Puget Sound area of Seattle.
Uh-huh.
And some of them get to be, 15, 20 feet long and enormous, right?
The big ones are out here. I'm in Seattle, and the big ones are right outside my door here. And there are lots of octopuses all over the world, but yeah, in fact, there can be a couple 100 pounds. The biggest one on record is 600 pounds. It was from Vancouver, BC.
Wow. Have you ever gone diving in the Puget Sound?
I have not.
Because I've heard that, the water is very cold, for one thing.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, it is.
And I guess it just stays cold all year round, right? It doesn't really warm up in the summer.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a degree or two, but it's still cold.
I mean, I used to do diving in warm water, and that was a lot of fun, but I don't know if I would want to dive in cold water. Plus, I've heard that the visibility in the Puget Sound is pretty limited.
I think the bad news is that it's at its best in midwinter. I'm not sure why that's the case, but I've heard that. So that makes it even colder because you're cold when you get out too.
Yeah, true enough. Did you self-publish these books, your books?
I did.
How did you find that process?
Well, in the case of the volleyball book, it was back then when I did it, what you did was you hired a printer in the Midwest and printed. My first print run was 10,000 copies, and my second was 5,000 copies. Of course, now it's print on demand, and so you don't have to have, I mean, I actually acquired the inventory and had to hire somebody to ship out the books. It was all mail order. And of course, now with print on demand, it's one book at a time. And so it's back to this not tech savvy Amazon, KDP, all of that. I mean, it's not easy for somebody with my lack of technical skill.
Okay, no, I always like to ask authors about their publishing because basically these days there are 3 different types of publishing avenues available for authors. There's self-publishing, there's hybrid, and then there's full traditional Big 5 New York publishing houses.
Right.
So I'm always curious about which route people go and, the experience that they've had. So all of your books now are on Amazon in the print on demand. Did you do ebooks as well and audiobooks?
Yes. Not audio yet, but we do have ebooks. So in fact, we're about to run a special where they're going to be available for 99 cents a piece.
Have you done any advertising?
No, I did some advertising for the volleyball book in Volleyball Magazine, but for this book, I hired a publicist, and that's how I found my way to you.
I like to promote authors, and this is one of the reasons why this show started was because of COVID. Authors couldn't get out to do book signing tours and things like that. So we started this show as a sort of virtual meet and greet, if you will, for the author. Any plans to write something else? Have you got anything in the works?
I have written throughout my life short-lined pieces, which I like to call word performances or microtales. They look like poems, but they don't accord with what is typically considered to be poetry these days. That is, they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They tell a story. a pause at the end of the line. They're easy to read, but not necessarily simple or unsophisticated. I mean, I like to use words, and so my aspiration was to make them nice to read. So the next go around would be a memoir in which I talk about how difficult it was or impossible to get these published.
Did you, I guess I should ask you if you sent your books around to publishers before you self-published.
In the case of the volleyball book, I really didn't, because I wanted to control it 100%, and part of it included hiring a very accomplished illustrator, and I can't even remember how many thousands of photos, and it ended up having 400 illustrations, by a professional illustrator. And so I really wanted to control that one. As far as this one goes, I did take shots at agents, and my publicist lady has said she couldn't believe that an agent didn't pick it up, but they didn't. So I was left with this route.
Wow. The book has 400 illustrations?
Well, this is the volleyball book now.
The volleyball,
kids
okay.
book, the kids book is what they call a chapter book, so no illustrations at all. Although there's some fun stuff on my website. I mean, I have the creatures that I mentioned in the book are on my website, and some fun things about octopuses. I mean, you probably know that they like shiny things.
Well, I didn't know that, actually.
Oh yeah, I've seen a couple of videos where the diver is trying to shoot a video of the octopus, and you see the arm come unrolling out, snapping out, and the next thing you see is a bunch of suckers and the camera going every which way because the octopus wants to take it back home, wants to take the camera home.
Well, that's an expensive entertainment for the octopus, yeah?
It doesn't bother the diver. He just wants the camera.
Well, Jeff, we got to wind this down. You mentioned your website. Could you give out your website, please?
Sure, it's jefflucasauthor.com.
And there's links to, you said, your books and...
Well, there's what's called a creature library, and so there are photos and little blurbs about the creatures that are included in the book, and then there's some videos of octopuses doing funny things and fun things.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you, and best of luck with your book.